So somewhere in your metal vinyl collection, you no doubt have some extended play records, or EPs. And while they might be short on songs, what they often have are hard to find tracks, or ones that might even be exclusive to the EPs. So in salute to these diminutive discs, I'll be counting down my top 20 favorite classic metal EPs, go into why I dig them, show some vinyl, and get into some details on the releases in general. So all of that, coming up. At number 20 is the first EP from Swedish heavy metal guitarist Yngwie J. Malmsteen. This is Studio Live 85, released in 1985, of course, by Polydor Records. So a 3-song EP with, as the title suggests, one studio track, such being I'll See the Light Tonight, and the other side having 2 live tracks, Far Beyond the Sun and I'm a Viking, recorded live in Japan, 1985. If interested, the entire live show was available on VHS and Laserdisc at the time under the title Rising Force Live 85. Funny enough, both I'll See the Light Tonight and I'm a Viking had their own singles, and both with Don't Let It End as the B-side. Also, for some reason, the volume level on this is considerably higher on the studio side of the EP than the live side. Don't know why. Anyways, good selection of tracks. We've got Far Beyond the Sun, which has a dueling keyboard and guitar trade-off that's rather fun. Of course, I'm a Viking is one of my favorite Yngwie tracks, and the live version does not disappoint. It's Yngwie delving into a darker side of his neoclassical playing, but without losing any sort of dramatic edge. And of course, Jeff Scott Soto on vocals, likely Yngwie's greatest singer. So a real high point in this band's career, for sure. Favorites are I'll See the Light Tonight, and of course, I'm a Viking. Track listing there on the reverse for you. It is a top loader at Polydor Records. There you are. So at number 20 is Studio Live 85 by Yngwie J. Malmsteen. Coming in at number 19 is the first EP from German heavy metal band Accept. This is Kaizoku Ban, released in 1985 by Portrait Records. So this is a 6-song live EP from the band's Metal Heart Tour, recorded on September 19th, 1985 in Nagoya, Japan. And in case you're wondering about the EP title, it is Japanese for bootleg, though more of a major label-released official bootleg, which of course really isn't a bootleg. But anyways, I do believe this is the first live release from the band, and it was a good time to put it out, as Accept was enjoying the spotlight from 2 concurrently successful records, both Metal Heart and Balls to the Wall before that. As for sound quality, it's considerably better than standard bootleg quality, and you can even hear the crowd at times. Always wish they'd done a full live album back then instead, but they did release a 2 LP live record from this tour, but back in 1989, from Osaka instead of Nagoya, but close enough. The album is called Staying a Life and has been reissued a number of times. The copy in my collection is a 2020 reissue from Music on Vinyl and is well worth the listen. As for the CP's favorites are Head Over Heels and Love Child. I think the big surprise is the absence of Balls to the Wall, not to mention Restless and Wild. Instead, this is only tracks from Metal Heart and Balls to the Wall, except again for the latter's title track, which is a huge hit for them. Both of those songs are on Staying a Life, though, as it is a wider spread of tracks from their discography up to that point. Still, I love this little EP, and it was the only way I got to hear live Accept at the time, other than having seen them in 1984 opening for Ozzy, which was my very first metal show. Very cool. Anyways, track listings here on the back for you. And the vinyl, of course. Portrait Records logo right there for you. So at number 19 is Kaizoku Ban by Accept. At number 18 is the debut EP from American heavy metal band Armored Saint. This is Armored Saint, released in 1983 by Metal Blade Records. So this 3-track EP is really just tracks pulled from their 1982 demo, which wasn't really uncommon back then. See my number 2 choice later on for another example of demos used for first EP. Anyways, the first track, Lesson Well Learned, was initially on Metal Blade's second installment of their Metal Massacre compilation series before its appearance here. Production on this one is also pretty top-notch, handled by Metal Blade veteran producer and engineer Bill Matoyer, of course. Hard to pick a favorite on this one, as all three tracks are pretty great, but Twist My Arm and I'd likely say False Alarm. But again, all three tracks are stellar and lead well into their following full-length record, March of the Saint. And almost needless to say, John Bush is on fire throughout this EP. I mean, hearing this, there is no wondering why a major label snapped up this band right after. You can hear it, for sure. Picture on the back. So have those early Metal Blade labels with the axe there. Also has an insert. Lyrics on one side and absolutely nothing on the other. So at number 18 is Armored Saint by Armored Saint. Coming in at number 17 is the second EP from British heavy metal band Raven. This is Break the Chain, released in 1983 by Neat Records. So, just to avoid any confusion, or maybe introduce some, Break the Chain is both an EP and a single. Both came out in 1983 and have similar covers, but the 7-inch single has 2 tracks instead of the EP's 3, with the Ballad of Marshall Stack on the single's B-side in place of 2 different songs that make up the 12-inch EP. Make sense? Good. Anyways, the fun part of this version is the inclusion of Accept vocalist Udo Dirkschneider doing co-vocals on the band's cover of the Steppenwolf song Born to Be Wild. It's a screaming, up-tempo, and completely insane version of the song, so I actually like it. They did do a single just for this cover tune as well, also in 1983, and also sharing the following track, Inquisitor. So think of the Break the Chain EP as having the entire Born to Be Wild single tracks as its B-side. And to be honest, this really is the best combination of the 3 releases, especially having both Break the Chain and my favorite track here, Inquisitor. There's the back for you. Track listing of all 3. And Roadrunner labels there for you. In conjunction with Neat Records, of course. So at number 17 is Break the Chain by Raven with Udo Dirkschneider. At number 16 is the first EP from Canadian speed metal band Exciter. This is Feel the Knife, released in 1985 by Music for Nations. So the title track was recorded during the Long Live the Loud sessions, but didn't make it to the final album for some reason. Not really sure why, because it's a killer song and almost worth buying the EP just for it. Side B has 2 live tracks on it, both recorded on June 13th, 1984 at Barrymore's Music Hall in Ottawa, Canada, such being Violence and Force and Pounding Metal. So actual live songs. How about that? And out of the 6 documented songs on the set list that night, these really would be the 2 I'd choose. Also, the performance is tight and heavy and really makes me wish I could have heard the entire show. It's that good. This is also the final recording with the original lineup, as John Ricci made his first departure from the band right after this. He did have a total of 3 exits from Exciter, amazingly enough. As for favorites, well, all 3 are pretty much qualifying, though the live version of Pounding Metal is utterly crushing. So definitely start with that one. So reverse, track listing, shot of the band, and Music for Nations labels right there for you. So at number 16 is Feel the Knife by Exciter. Coming in at number 15 is the second EP from German thrash metal band Destruction. This is Mad Butcher, released in 1987 by Steamhammer Records. So this is the point in time when Destruction became a 4-piece with the addition of second guitarist Harry Wilkins, who stayed with the band until the Cracked Brain album in 1990. 4 songs here, including a cover version of The Damned, originally by the Plasmatics. It's fine and even occasionally surpasses the original, but also feels a little like filler at times. As for the title track to Mad Butcher, it's actually a redo with its original version appearing on the band's first EP, Sentence of Death. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that EP later in the list for sure. Anyways, this newly revamped version of the track is certainly cleaner and tighter and more in line with the sound they'd established on their previous 2 albums. though the Pink Panther riff at the end is a bit goofy. Regardless, this EP is a nice extension of the album before it, such being Eternal Devastation, which is my favorite Destruction album. Of the 4 tracks, my favorite is definitely Reject Emotions, which could have easily been good enough for a studio album, and it even outshines this EP's title track for me. Granted, the solo section is a wee bit long, but that's only one tiny flaw in an otherwise awesome track. Anyways, the EP ends with an instrumental called The Last Judgment, which can get a bit shreddy in parts, skittering into neoclassical territory, but without losing the band's ferocity and crunch. Toss in brief acoustic passages, and the instrumental does get a tad manic and unfocused, but that's part of Destruction's charm. It's a feature, not a bug. There's the back for you with the track listings, shot of the band. And of course, those beautiful Steam Hammer labels in blue, and then a sort of green tan on the back for you. Very nice. So at number 15 is Mad Butcher by Destruction. At number 14 is the second EP from American thrash metal band Nuclear Assault. This is The Plague, released in 1987 by Combat Records. So 6 songs total here, starting with the instrumental track Game Over, which is not from their album of the same name, but it does serve as an excellent opening track, and at a little over 2.5 minutes, it quickly gets us to Nightmares, which is a thrash classic with plenty of head-banging riffs. In fact, riffs are never in short supply here, or any other Nuclear Assault release for that matter. Of course, Nuclear Assault likes to get a bit raunchy and juvenile, and the following track, Butt Fuck, certainly qualifies there. It's mostly thrash with its utterly crushing main riff, but also throws in a mock blues section about mid-track, which the lyrics actually defend, which is interesting. It also gets a little politically incorrect, which I also like. In many ways, this feels like an SOD song, and since Danny Lilker is connected to both bands, it's not much of a coincidence. The song is also clearly about Vince Neil killing Razzle, even so much as name-dropping the Hanoi Rocks drummer and mentioning the brand of car used in the accident. So there's that. Probably one of the more curious songs on this one is the title track, which is something of a thrash ballad, if you will. With its slow groove riff and Connolly's scream singing taking on a more melodic role, it's actually not bad at all. I mean, it kind of works. The EP ends with Cross of Iron, which is a total speedfest and a fantastic EP ender. The record is only 22 minutes long, but it feels very dense in content, as if you heard an entire album, but just very quickly. Favorites on this EP are Nightmares, Justice, and Cross of Iron, and it's these 3 tracks that really give you a good idea of this band's core sound. Also, note my copy's bad printing of the logo. Basically, it's off-register, so it appears there are 2 logos slapped almost on top of each other. So I don't know, maybe a collector's item. Again, who knows? Anyways, reverse of the jacket here with the track listing, shot of the band. It also does come with an inner sleeve, printed inner sleeve, pics of the band, lyrics and credits. And of course, the vinyl on Combat, the gray camos for you. There you are. Anyways, at number 14 is The Plague by Nuclear Assault. Coming in at number 13 is the second EP from German thrash metal band Creator. This is Out of the Dark, Into the Light, released in 1988 by Noise Records. So we start the EP with the then new track Impossible to Cure, which would have fit really well on their follow-up album Extreme Aggression, given its performance and production. Next is the Raven cover song Lambs to the Slaughter, and a really solid rendition of the track with plenty of up-tempo Creator aggression throughout. As with any good cover, the band definitely makes it their own. The 3 live tracks on the B-side, Terrible Certainty, Riot of Violence, and Awakening of the Gods, were recorded on May 31st, 1988 at the Dynamo Open Air Festival in Eindhoven, Holland, or what we now call the Netherlands. The full set was actually 13 songs, and from that list, I might have slightly preferred Flag of Hate in place of Awakening of the Gods, but overall not complaining. Even some of the sour notes on that last live track aren't too bad. At any rate, live tracks from Creator at this time were really great to get, though a full live album would have been better. something we wouldn't see until 2003's live creation. Of course, another good source for live creator tracks in the classic era can be found on the 1990 live comp Doomsday News 3, on which they share space with Coroner, Tankard, and Sabbath. Anyways, favorites on this EP are Impossible to Cure and the live version of Riot of Violence. I should also mention that the CD version of this EP came with an additional track, such being another cover song, this time Gangland, originally done by Tigers of Pantang. It's a pretty incredible cover, and I wish it had made it to the vinyl. If it had, it would have been another favorite choice here. No question. The back for you, track listings and all that. Labels, Noise Records, there you are. And there should be an inner sleeve in here as well, with lyrics on one side, shot of the band on the reverse. So at number 13 is Out of the Dark, Into the Light by Creator. At number 12 is the fourth EP from British extreme metal band Venom. This is Canadian Assault, released in 1985 by Banzai Records. So before we get to this record, I should briefly explain the Assault series of EPs from Venom. There were actually 6 official ones released between 1985 and 1987. It's Canadian, American, French, Japanese, German, and Scandinavian Assault, each of which with a mix of studio and live tracks. They were also distributed by labels from the titled nations or regions, so American Assault from Combat, German Assault from Roadrunner, and this one from Banzai Records, which was a Canadian label. Of the 6, Canadian Assault did the best sales-wise and still remains my favorite of the series. Anyways, live tracks here are Die Hard, Welcome to Hell, and In Nomine Satanas, and this is definitely the first live material I'd heard from Venom when I bought this in 1985. Later on, I'd find the 7th Date of Hell live at Hammersmith Odeon VHS with more tracks from the show, as well as the Alive in 85 home video. Of course, when you get live Venom, you get the tracks warts and all, which is to say that the playing is a bit rough, but certainly listenable. Anyways, the tracks were pulled from their performance on June 1st, 1984 at the Hammersmith Odeon on their 7 Dates of Hell tour. Again, check out the 7th Date of Hell home video for more of that show. As for the studio side, you get Warhead from the single of the same name, Woman from the Manitou single, and misspelled on this cover as Women. Actually, cover, there you go. And we also get 7 Gates of Hell from the Warhead EP. Tracks are listed here and here, by the way. They split them up. I don't know why they do that. Anyways, favorite tracks in this one are the live version of In Nomine Satanas and the studio version of 7 Gates of Hell. And I already showed you the back, but you know what? Look at it again. There it is. And of course, we have the vinyl here, full track listing on one side, and that lovely Banzai Records logo on the back. So at number 12 is Canadian Assault by Venom. Coming in at number 11 is the second EP from American thrash metal band Slayer. This is Live Undead, released in 1984 by Metal Blade Records. My copy is a Roadrunner Records release. We'll get into that in a little bit. Anyways, a couple things about Live Undead that are worth mentioning. There were actually different track listings depending on what version you got. Again, mine's the Roadrunner pressing, so I don't get Show No Mercy, as I would on the Metal Blade version, and instead get Fight Till Death. Also, track orders are different between versions. There's even a Japanese pressing that has Aggressive Perfector and Chemical Warfare in place of Antichrist and Fight Till Death, or Show No Mercy. So if you're a collector, you have 3 main variants to chase after. There is also a vinyl reissue from 1987 that has tracks from all versions, except for the track Fight Till Death, and it has a black border instead of this white one. There's also a picture disc version of this from 1984 with the standard Metal Blade track listing, so bunch of variants out there. Also, we should talk about just how live one side of this live EP is. It wasn't a concert recording, but rather a live in studio recording, but with either a small number of fans in the studio with the band, or the crowd is artificially piped into the mix in post-production, depending on who you talk to. So maybe live, maybe not. Anyways, the live side of the EP opens with Black Magic, which was a common staple in their live set in the early days. Next is Die by the Sword, and concluding the side is Captor of Sin, misspelled on the back as Captor with an ER at the end. Fantastic. Song quality of the live tracks is really good, but again, it's a studio recording, so that might be why. As for the B-side, they're both claimed and actual studio recordings, basically from previous studio releases. You get Haunting the Chapel, Antichrist, and as I mentioned, Fight Till Death. I think given both sides, this really is a decent selection of tracks from their then meager discography. Plus, you got the band is Ghouls on the cover. How can you beat that? Anyways, favorites here are the live version of Die by the Sword and the studio version of Antichrist. Of course, I already showed you the back, but this is a glimpse of it again, including the typo. Also got the Roadrunner labels in white this time with red. They are. So at number 11 is Live Undead by Slayer. At number 10 is the debut EP from German thrash metal band Destruction. This is Sentence of Death, released in 1984 by Steamhammer Records. So this is Destruction's first official release, and although it does show in some ways, it also captures a lot of the aggression and energy that would continue in future releases, but admittedly with better production and tighter playing later on. 5 songs in total, if you don't include the slightly over a minute intro. Vocals are certainly more gravelly and growlier than their Falling records, but again, the energy is really there. Solos are somewhat less metal at times and a bit more rock-centered, albeit speedy, which is interesting when put against what is clearly early thrash metal. And since we talked about it before, this is where you'll find an earlier version of the track Mad Butcher. It's more raw and certainly looser played than its later re-recording, but still has a lot to love about it. It also feels a little slower, but not by much. And I really love the blurb on the back jacket here that reads, "The end is near, Lucifer's legions of death are ready for attack. They've only got one aim, total destruction." Amazing, it's right there. Also dedication to, quote, "all you black speed metal maniacs who buy this fucking trash." Amazing. And pretty accurate, as labeling this era of the catalog as black speed kind of fits. Anyways, favorites of this one are Mad Butcher and Satan's Vengeance. Not very fond of the final track, Devil's Soldiers, which has an attempt at a sort of neoclassical intro, which they've done far better on following releases. Going into a main section that is a little bit all over the place and just not as musically interesting. But still, pretty listenable. Vinyl on this one, as I said, Steamhammer Records. Slightly older labels with the blue and the white. Here you are. So at number 10 is Sentence of Death by Destruction. Coming in at number 9 is the third EP from Swiss extreme metal band Celtic Frost. This is Tragic Serenades, released in 1986 by Noise Records. So 3 songs in total here, and 3 of my favorite Celtic Frost songs ever: The Usurper, Jewel Throne, and a re-recorded version of Return to the Eve, also referred to as the Party Mix. Also, production on those first 2 tracks, otherwise taken from their To Megatherion album, was beefed up a bit by the band. Truth be known, I actually prefer this version of Return to the Eve a little more than its original version. Kind of dig the vocal reactions from Reed and Tom throughout, which they felt added some lightheartedness to the version. And I gotta say, it really works for me. Also, I still have my original cassette of the EP right here. Owned this since the 1980s, back when it was relatively new. Such a cool EP, and I have no idea why I didn't get it on vinyl back in the 1980s. Makes no sense. But what does make sense is that this EP is a perfect recommendation for someone new to the band and wanting a sampling of their work from the classic era. But if I was going to be picky, I might have replaced Jewel Throne with the slightly superior track Circle of the Tyrants. But again, just being picky, Jewel Throne is still pretty great. I should also mention that this is the only non-G record in this video. My copy is from the Danse Macabre box set released in 2022. I also did a full unboxing of it, so check out that video when you get the chance. Here, I'll show you this. It is colored. There you go. And a little different on the back. I always like when they're different. Very cool. And the insert, or the inner sleeve rather. There, and there you go. So at number 9 is Tragic Serenades by Celtic Frost. At number 8 is the first EP from German thrash metal band Creator. This is Flag of Hate, released in 1986 by Noise Records. So 3 tracks here, starting with a re-recording of the track Flag of Hate, with its original version appearing on their 1985 debut album Endless Pain. This newer version shaves almost a minute off the original's runtime, and the production is considerably cleaner and heavier with improved musicianship, notably in the overall tightness. Definitely my preferred version. After that, we've got Take Their Lives, a totally brutal track with an utterly crushing main riff and a seriously headbangable chorus. And last is Awakening of the Gods, which retains the aggression and punch of the A-side and ends the EP very well. In fact, all 3 tracks are my favorites because there simply isn't a weak one in the bunch. At all. Which is why it ranks much higher than Out of the Dark, Into the Light for me. It's the back of the jacket. Track listings, pictures, you know the drill. The vinyl. Noise Records label. Same on the reverse. There you go. So at number 8 is Flag of Hate by Creator. Hey, number 8, Flag of Hate. That rhymes. How about that? Coming in at number 7 is the first EP from American thrash metal band Testament. This is Live at Eindhoven, released in 1987 by Megaforce Records. So this release came out about 6 months after their debut album, The Legacy, also from 1987. This is a live EP, 5 tracks in total, 4 of which originally from The Legacy, and one that at the time had only appeared on an older demo back when the band was known as Legacy. That track would be Reign of Terror, which would be later re-recorded in studio form and put on the B-side of their Trial by Fire single from 1988. Anyways, EP was recorded live on June 8th of 1987 at the Dynamo in Eindhoven, Netherlands. Interestingly enough, that's 9 days after Creator's live tracks from the Out of the Dark, Into the Light EP were performed, and from the same venue. So definitely loved Chuck's stage banter on this one. I mean, the request for the crowd to show their beers is one thing, but his lead-in for the track Do or Die sounds like a flubbed improv line, which I'll let you hear for yourself in case you hadn't already. Overall, the sound on the EP is decent, but not perfect, with some intermittent burying of a given instrument, but it's not a deal breaker. Still a very cool little live EP. I mean, it's at number 7 for a reason. By the way, there was also a reissue of Live at Eindhoven on vinyl by Nuclear Blast in 2018, with not only a different cover, but also including 10 tracks from the same show, making it a live album as opposed to just an EP. Anyways, favorites on this one are Over the Wall and Apocalyptic City. There's the full listing there for you and all the other goodies that you would see on the back cover. There you go. Also the vinyl, Megaforce Worldwide. There you go. So at number 7 is Live at Eindhoven by Testament. At number 6 is the second EP from American thrash metal band Overkill. This is Fuck You, released in 1987 by Caroline Records. The title still makes me giggle. I don't know why. Anyways, we've got 5 tracks on this one, 4 live and 1 studio. Starting with the studio track, we have a cover of the Subhumans tune Fuck You. Great cover version. If you didn't know better, you'd swear it was an Overkill song. In other words, effective cover song. And you even get a little Bobcat Goldthwait at the end, which is kind of fun. Of course, punk elements often fit well in the Overkill sound, so covering actual punk songs isn't exactly a stretch for them. They've done it before. Oh, and fun fact, I actually got to sing a single chorus of this song on stage with Blitz during their WFO tour when they played here in Burlington, Vermont, and then got promptly flung into the crowd by him. Still a good memory that I wish someone had videotaped. But anyways, the 4 live tracks, Rotten to the Core, Hammerhead, Use Your Head, and Electro Violence, were recorded on June 3rd of 1987 during their tour with Megadeth, and in some cases the Necros as well. Saw this tour in Providence, Rhode Island, exactly 7 days before this show was recorded. So I sometimes think of this EP as a bit of a souvenir of the tour I saw. Anyways, the sound is basically good bootleg quality and good enough for what it is. Forgot just how goofy the whole "You Are My Sunshine" riff shoved into the middle of Rotten to the Core was, but, many thrash bands back then were known to dive into goofball humor on occasion. See Anthrax for more of that. In fact, we'll be talking about Anthrax next. Anyways, this is only 4 of the live show's total 11 tracks. Of course, there is an expanded edition of Fuck You that was released in 1996 called Fuck You and Then Some. But even that's not the entire show. That LP has studio tracks from their debut EP and live songs that weren't on the June 3 set list, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge. And given that they played the song that night and it being a big hit for them, it's surprising that In Union We Stand isn't on this, or even on the expanded LP. Still, can't complain about what's here. Great EP. Favorites on this one are Fuck You, of course, and Hammerhead. There's the back for you. All of that. I don't need to explain what's there. You can see it. And the vinyl with that lovely middle finger in case you missed it on the cover. There it is again. I should also explain a little bit about this cover, speaking of which. When you bought it in the stores, in America at least, I don't know about Europe, it came in this black plastic bag cover. It was like garbage bag material. And it had a hype sticker, I believe, that might have had the censored title on it. I guess record stores in 1987 were a little scared of this. So that's how I bought it. And of course, I blind bought it because it was overkill and I would have bought overkill stuff anyways. So when I got it home, I actually ripped it out. Didn't know the cover, saw this, went, oh, okay. That's why the bag's on it. Anyways, short aside. Anyways, at number 6 is Fuck You by Overkill. Coming in at number 5 is the first EP from American thrash metal band Anthrax. This is Armed and Dangerous, released in 1985 by Megaforce Records. So yes, I talked about this EP a little bit on my Top 10 Anthrax Songs video not too long ago while discussing the track Raise Hell, but we're going to talk about the EP a little bit more here, so there you go. Anyways, the version of the title track here precedes the one on their following full-length release, Spreading the Disease, by about 8 months, and includes a short fade-in type of intro before the acoustic passage kicks in, adding about 25 seconds to the track. Now, is the intro entirely necessary? No, but I dig the dramatic effect as a single track, so I don't mind it being there. After that, we get Raise Hell, which, as I said in the other video, should have been on Spreading the Disease. It's that good. And I wouldn't have minded if it bumped out Medusa to do so, as although I like that song, it feels like the weakest on the record. But maybe you feel differently. Let me know in the comments. Anyways, the second side of the EP has a cover tune, namely God Save the Queen, originally by the Sex Pistols, as well as 2 so-called live tracks, Metal Thrashing Mad and Panic. And yes, they're live in studio, or faked live, take your pick. A lot of bands did this, of course. I mean, Metallica on the Whiplash single definitely comes to mind. Either way, the tracks are a bit punchier than the originals, definitely more energy, and seemingly a little faster, I'm thinking. Anyways, as for the cover song, it's serviceable, but I've never been a Sex Pistols fan, so it wouldn't have the same impact on me as it would for others. Though, given other examples from the era, I would much rather hear Anthrax do this band than, say, Megadeth or Motley Crue. That's for sure. Anyways, favorites include, of course, Raise Hell, but right behind that is Metal Thrashing Mad with Joey on vocals. Of course, there's the back for you, full track listing, and all of that. And look, Belladonna with a big D in it. You don't see that much after. Of course, the vinyl, those lovely Megaforce silver labels. There you are. And of course, if you watched my merch forms video from a little while back, you'd also know that this one does come with the merch form. Very nice. So at number 5 is Armed and Dangerous by Anthrax. At number 4 is the first EP from American metal band Metallica. This is the 598 EP Garage Days Revisited, released in 1987 by Elektra Records. So it's a record full of cover songs, either 5 or 6, depending on how you count the somewhat medley at the end. The story behind the EP is right on this back jacket. They had time between albums, so they went into the garage and spent 6 days cranking out some covers. First official recording with then new bassist Jason Newsted, who replaced the late Cliff Burton. Rest in peace to him, of course. And yes, Jason sounds great on this, and certainly not buried in the mix. Anyways, we've got Helpless, originally by Diamond Head, The Small Hours, originally by Holocaust, The Weight, originally by Killing Joke, Crash Course in Brain Surgery, originally by Budgie, and finishing off with 2 tracks put together, Last Caress and Green Hell, both originally by the Misfits. So just some observations here. No matter how many times I listen to The Small Hours, I always hear James say, "Come on, nerds," right before the kick-in part. It's probably not what he says, but at this point, I really don't want to think of it as anything else. The title of the EP, of course, is a reference to the name of Side B of the Creeping Death single, which is Garage Days Revisited. Yes, one side of a single has its own name, and that's how we got Garage Days Revisited. I keep running into people who don't know that, so I'm saying it here. Of course, if you like Metallica doing cover songs, they released a triple LP collection of them in 1998 called Garage Incorporated, so there's that. Also, Jason fucking rules on Crash Course. Go listen to it again in case you forgot. Anyways, favorites on this EP are Helpless, The Small Hours, and Last Caress, Green Hell. And there's the back again in case you didn't get a good look at it the first time. Also, the vinyl, Electro labels, and all of that. There you go. So at number 4 is the 598 EP, Garage Days Revisited by Metallica. Coming in at number 3 is the debut EP from Danish heavy metal band Merciful Fate. This is Merciful Fate, released in 1982 by Rave On Records. So 4 songs here, starting with A Corpse Without Soul, and right away we're hearing those crazy King Diamond falsettos and that twin guitar attack of Sherman and Denner. After that we get Nuns Have No Fun, which is still a great song title because, of course, they don't. They're nuns. Anyways, we flip over from side A to side 1, as the jacket clearly states, and we get both Doomed by the Living Dead and Devil Eyes. Definitely feel that the first side is a little stronger than the second, but both are well worth hearing. And they do give you a clear picture of where the band is headed in later releases. I should mention the drumming here as well, which is noticeably peppy and syncopated, almost funky at times. It's sometimes an odd and weirdly enjoyable pairing with the other instruments. Certainly some Judas Priest making its way into the solos at times, maybe more so than on the following records. And although I do love King's voice, it's a lot more controlled and better utilized after this EP. Though you could make the case that the relative unhinged aspect of King's vocals on this EP give the tracks an extra charm or energy. I think there's some validity to that. Also, something fun I just found out about regarding the band name. Seems that no one in the band actually came up with Merciful Fate. Rather, it came from the girlfriend of their tour manager. They liked the name and it stuck. Go figure. Anyways, favorites are A Corpse Without Soul and Nuns Have No Fun, especially Nuns. I mean, classic track. If you haven't done it in a while, I seriously implore you to revisit the lyrics of the song because they are hysterical. Faster breathing, she's like a shark. Indeed. There's the back for you. Side A and side 1. Amazing. Great pics of the band, including one of Timmy Grabber. Love the name. And I know it's the Gibson bass from the 70s. I get it. Rave On Records logo there. Merciful Fates. And this does come with the lyrics, the hand-typed sheet of lyrics there for you. This is second press, by the way. It does have the black border instead of the white border and all of that. So at number 3 is Merciful Fate by Merciful Fate. At number 2 is the debut EP from American progressive metal band Queensryche. This is Queensryche, released in 1983 by 206 Records. So yes, this is the other demo as EP release that I mentioned during the Armored Saint segment. When they recorded this as a demo, they were still known as The Mob, but changed their name soon after. Anyway, some strong power metal leanings in the early material from this band, which would somewhat continue in their follow-up full-length The Warning, before more of the progressive and experimental elements would enter the picture. Production on this one is surprisingly good for not being on a major label at the time. They later went to EMI and re-released this a year later. This is the original. And of course, straight out the gate are the insanely brilliant vocals of Mr. Jeff Tate. High notes and punch galore throughout these tracks, punctuated by the killer guitar duo of DeGarmo and Wilton, who are just on fire on this EP. Also, the music video for Queen of the Reich is amazing in its unbridled enthusiasm and ridiculous low-budget sci-fi effects. Please watch it. And somehow, I never knew this way back, but there was also a music video for the track Night Rider, which definitely shows how, shall we say, expressive Tate is in his performances. Let's just say he makes great faces. So yeah, go watch that too. Speaking of which, favorite tracks are Night Rider and The Lady Wore Black. The first for its power and heaviness, the latter for its slow, epic quality, along with showing Tate's vocal range and overall effective delivery. It's the back for you. If you had the EMI version, the logo would be somewhere down there. Pretty cool. And the original label's there, 206 Records. And I think that's up, right? There you go. So at number 2 is Queensryche by Queensryche. And coming in at number 1 is the first EP from American thrash metal band Slayer. This is Haunting the Chapel, released in 1984 by Metal Blade Records. So I might have told this story already, but I'm an old man, so maybe forgive the potential redundancy here. Anyways, the spring of 1985, I already bought Show No Mercy and a then brand new Hell Awaits. However, I was having trouble finding a copy of this EP, but then learned that a kid in my Spanish class had a copy of it. See, my pal Angel got the record either as a gift or he blind bought it, but in either case really seemed to hate it, which I couldn't even imagine back then. I mean, it's Slayer. Anyways, at the same time, a relative had bought me a copy of Stryper's first EP, The Yellow and Black Attack, which I did not like, perhaps as much as Angel disliked his Slayer EP. So we made a trade, the Battle of Good and Evil, as we called it. In short, I traded Stryper for Slayer, and that's why I have it. Also, rest in peace, Angel Velez. Anyways, I always consider this EP to be a bit of a bridge between the more classic style on Show No Mercy and the totally aggressive sound on Hell Awaits, and you can definitely hear the transition in all 3 tracks on this EP. Starting with Chemical Warfare, you get the opening machine gun riff, bringing in a second guitar on top, then joined by pounding drums, and then it just kicks in and assaults you. Captor of Sin follows, and is spelled correctly on the EP, by the way. And by this moment, the EP is already showing some marked improvements on the band's sound, including a greater utilization of Dave's drumming skills, noticeably the double bass, which is prominent in all 3 tracks. Also, that frantic quality of later releases really starts to undeniably emerge here. You can definitely hear it. The EP ends with the title track, perhaps the weakest of the 3, but it's certainly no slouch. It definitely has a relentless, brutal pulse to it, bringing in the rhythmic vocal lines of Clear Blasphemy, which pleased the 16-year-old me from back then quite a bit. Anyways, favorites here are Chemical Warfare and Captor of Sin. You can see the back there. Lyrics on the back. You don't usually see that on a lot of releases, especially back then. Pretty cool. And the vinyl. My copy is Roadrunner. I do have a lot of foreign vinyl for some reason. I did swap with a friend in Canada, so that might be why. Canadians got a lot of European releases than Americans. I kept finding that out about my Canadian friends. But there you go. Anyways, my number 1 favorite classic metal EP is Haunting the Chapel by Slayer. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who has a love for EPs, either classic or modern. Let me know which ones of these are your favorite, or list some that I didn't mention. That'd be cool as well. Or if you simply want to argue about what constitutes an EP versus an LP, you can tell me that, and anything else you'd like to add in the comments below. Also, let me know if you'd be interested in a top 20 favorite modern metal EPs video, because I was kicking around that idea after producing this one. So yeah, would love to hear from you on that, for sure. And if this is your first time dropping by my channel, just so you know, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on metal vinyl collecting, but also classic and modern metal in general. If you like the sound of that, definitely give this video a like, but maybe consider subscribing to my channel and sharing my playlists and videos and all of that good stuff with some of your friends on social media. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.